Hi everyone, and welcome to our monthly webinar series, helping you gear up for Global Youth Service Day. At this point, we're a little less than 2 months away until our campaign kicks off, and we can't wait to see all of the amazing impacts that you have this Global Youth Service Day. This month, we're going to learn from our experts about how to create a compelling communications plan to engage all of your audiences on Global Youth Service Day and all of your other projects. Before we go ahead and get started, I just want to introduce myself to all of you who may not know who I am. My name is Sarah Berry, and I'm the Associate Director of Grants and Trainings here at YSA. And I've been at YSA for a little over 2 years now, and I've worked with many of you who are here on the call, as well as hundreds of other grantees. I'm originally from Boston, but I've lived in DC for 6 years now. I went to the George Washington University, where I earned my bachelor's in human services. And all of my contact information is here on the screen, so if you have any questions about this webinar, any previous webinars, or more specifically any of YSA's programs, specifically our grant programs, you can reach out to me through any of these channels and I would be happy to help. I'm also here tonight with some of our other staff members, so if they chime in at any point, don't be alarmed. There's about 6 of us here in the room, so they're all saying hello as well, and we are excited to get started. First, I'm going to introduce you to our speakers this evening. First up, we have Winnie Nam, who is another member of the wonderful team here at YSA. Winnie is YSA's Director of Communications, and she oversees all of our communications, campaign planning, and promotes the YSA brand through a variety of public engagement strategies. Before starting at YSA, Winnie was the Communications Manager at the George Washington University's Rising Powers Initiative. She's also worked with Apple and the U.S. Embassy of Singapore. And a fun fact about Winnie is that she plays the violin. Excuse me. Next up, we have Michael Corsi, who some of you may recognize. He is the marketing manager at Carousel 30. Michael is a lifelong storyteller and marketing expert who has worked with some of the world's biggest brands like Ben & Jerry's and Starbucks. He uses his experience working with these brands and a variety of nonprofits. He has learned exactly what stories to tell and exactly how to tell them. So he's going to share that information with you this evening from the variety of different work he's done. And a fun fact about Michael is that he went to school for acting and dance. Finally, I'd like to introduce our Twitter chat host for this webinar, Elizabeth Meyer. Elizabeth serves on YSA's Global Youth Council, and for the past 4 years, she has been focusing on battling childhood hunger. She has hosted a variety of fundraisers, presented workshops at local, state, and national levels, and she utilizes social media to reach her peers. She has also organized a committee to revive her school district's Buddy Pack program, which was almost shut down due to lack of funding. Outside of working to eliminate childhood hunger, Elizabeth has helped bring an anti-drug and anti-bullying national speaker to her FCCLA region and school district, and she has taken part in autism awareness projects, volunteered at a suicide prevention 5K, as well as talked to elementary school children about the importance of healthy eating. Elizabeth works very closely with both No Kid Hungry and FCCLA, which is the Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America. So she'll be on Twitter tonight asking and answering questions about Global Youth Service Day, about the topics here tonight. So feel free to tweet at her and make sure you're using the hashtag GYSD to contribute to the conversation. So by the end of this webinar, we hope to have answered some of your biggest questions about campaign strategies and how to tell your stories through media. We will focus on how to create a successful communications plan and what resources you can use to achieve these goals. We'll also focus on common types of media tools, whether that's paid, earned, owned, or shared. Lastly, we will talk about the components of a great story and some of the best practices for sharing your own stories. So now I'm going to pass it off to the experts who know a little bit more about this than me, and we are going to start with Winnie.
Sarah, and hi everyone. Thanks for tuning in tonight. We're really excited to give you guys some tips and tricks for upping your communications game for GYSD. So I'm going to start with the big picture, the 30,000-foot view of communications. It's a lot of what I do in my role here at YSA, and I think it's an important thing to think about, thinking about your strategy before you dive into all things branding, marketing, social media, etc. But first things first, why do we need a communications plan? Well, I think there are 3 reasons why it's important to have one. The The first is structure. A communications plan will make it possible to target your communication accurately. So this gives you a structure to really determine whom you need to reach and how you're going to reach them. I think the second reason why we need a communications plan is because it gives you long-term vision. A communications plan can be long-term, helping you map out how to raise your profile and how to refine your image in the community over time. And then I think the last reason that we need a communications plan is for efficiency's sake. A plan will make your communication efforts more efficient, more effective, and it will make them really lasting. A plan makes everything easier because if you spend more time planning at the beginning of an effort, you save a great deal of time later on because you know exactly what you should be doing at any point in the process. So those are the three reasons why we need a communications plan. So what actually goes into a communications plan? I think there are several questions and components to consider. And the first is, why do you want to communicate with the community? And in other words, what is your purpose? Why are you doing this? Another thing to consider is, whom do you want to communicate it to? Who's your audience? And then we start thinking about content and messaging. So what do you want to communicate? So what is your message? Not only that, but how do you want to communicate it? What communication channels will you use? Are you using paid ads? Are you using Facebook, YouTube? And we'll spend some time talking about these channels more later on, but I think it's important that you find the right tools for your audience. So think about where they spend most of their time and how they spend their time, and choose the appropriate tool to reach that specific audience member. And then lastly, when you're thinking about your communications plan, think about whom should you contact and what should you do in order to use those channels. So how are you actually going to distribute your message? Who do you need to talk to, or what needs to happen in order to get that message out? Okay, so we have our purpose, our audience, our message, our channels, our distribution. Before we move on, I just want to point out that you can have multiple of all of these components. The important thing is to think about how we connect the right message with the appropriate audience using the correct communication channels to reach our goal. So next slide. Now we have to think about the timing, right? This doesn't all just happen in one day, so it's important for us to think about how your message may change over time as your GYSD event approaches. So for this, I think it's really helpful to think about your plan in terms of a matrix. So we have here a snippet of a communications matrix from a real GYSD project, and this is by Joanna, who wanted to create a gardening program that educates youth in her community about the benefits of eating healthy and how to prepare cheap, low-cost meals. So you can see that she's already started to lay out her plans for her GYSD project week by week, leading up to GYSD, and she's selected a few channels to get her message out. And she's also noted the logistical components in the distribution column. So this gives you an idea of how you might organize your thoughts and ideas week by week, and then turn them into a plan that you can share with everyone that's helping you run the project so that you guys are all on the same page. And it's also what we do here at YSA too when we go into GYSD planning mode, albeit on a larger scale. But the components are the same, and so your communications matrix is a great place to start. We've included an Excel template to help you get started in the handout section. And the great thing about GYSD is that you're not alone. There are thousands of others out there planning their own projects, wondering how they tell others about what they're doing. So before I turn the mic over to Michael, I just want to briefly run through some of the resources we offer at YSA that can help you talk about your GYSD project to others. So if you go to gysd.org/promote, or the fourth tab under the GYSD tab on the YSA website, a bunch of tools that will help you promote your project. We have GYSD logos in various file formats, sample social media messages if you're not sure what to say about GYSD or how to say it. And we've got tools and tips for engaging public leaders and VIPs. We also have templates for email pitches and press releases, as well as a media advisory template. And there are also print materials available for download. We have certificates for you to thank your volunteers, and we have a GYSD poster that you can print to let people know about what's coming up ahead in April. Next slide. If you go to gysd.org/about, we also have some general information about GYSD and a history of how it all began. That's always useful information to share with newcomers to GYSD so that they can place their actions in the context of the millions of others that they're following. If you'd like to receive GYSD updates and aren't already signed up, I would recommend you sign up for the Youth Service Briefing, which is YSA's weekly newsletter that reports not just on YSA-specific activities, but everything in the service learning and volunteer field. We've got an article coming out tonight that talks about the what's in it for me aspect of volunteering that might be useful to pitch to volunteers that can't quite seem to commit, so that might be useful for you. And you can sign up on the bottom right footer of the YSA website. And lastly, if you're an organization that works with us, thanks for working with us and thanks for tuning in. One of our, keep an eye out for your partner-specific emails from either Rebecca and Mike on our partnerships team. And I'm just going to finish there and conclude by saying that I hope this helps you guys get the gears turning on how you can better promote the fabulous work that we know you all are doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Winnie. I've learned a lot from you over the past 12 months as well as in the past 10 minutes, so that's been really helpful. So now I'm going to pass it off to Michael Corsi, who you will see on the screen here, and he's going to tell you a little more about storytelling.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining tonight. Let's talk about stories. So the first thing I want to talk about is let's KYSS. Keep your stories simple. What you're doing in the field is great, but it can't happen in a vacuum. So you've got to learn how to tell your stories. And one of my favorite quotes is by Steve Jobs and Apple, where the point of this really is focus and simplicity. That means by focusing on your story and keeping it simple, it's not always as easy as that. It's actually quite difficult, but when you do focus and keep things simple in your storytelling, you can move mountains. So why tell your story? What is your story, not someone else's? That is one of my biggest tips recommendation is to tell your story. Don't tell the story of anyone else or the group that you're with. Tell the stories that you know. Why should someone care about the story? Focus on the why. Why do you care, and why would someone else care? And then what is the goal, and what happens after you tell your story? So in storytelling, you don't just want to tell a story for the sake of telling it. You really need to think about what is the purpose, why it matters to you, and why it would matter to someone else. So let's get into some of the key elements of what makes a good story. Stories have to have characters. Who was involved? This isn't just a resume. It isn't just a list of facts of the person. When you're starting to tell your stories, really provide the essence of who the people around you are, who is serving with you, who is involved in your project, and why someone else should care. Explain the context behind how these characters are involved, and importantly, you want to keep stories personal. You want to make them real, so you want to reveal emotions. Emotions are at the heart of us as people, and in storytelling, if you can help reveal the emotions behind the characters, it helps inspire others to be into action. The second element of a good story is conflict. Every good story has to have conflict. Service is fun, and service can be easy, and Global Youth Service Day can seem fun and incredibly easy at times, but we all know how difficult it is to make the sacrifices that it takes to plan a really great project. So we want to talk about the conflict. You guys, we're all working for really great causes. We want to discuss the conflict behind those causes. We want to talk about how that conflict impacts the characters, how those characters transform through the challenge. It's not always adversity. It's, it can be you show up on a service day and something positive is revealed to you, but we want to reveal those things, talk about the conflict, and take the time to describe what the characters are going through. Again, I want to point out to include real emotions, why it really matters to you and why it really matters to those characters. And then the last key storytelling element is resolution. So we want to talk about the characters. who's there, the conflict, what are these characters going through, and then we want to provide a resolution. How did the characters change? How did the people involved with your project change? What did they learn? How are they different than at the beginning of what they were doing? It doesn't always need to be a happy ending. It can be a very, very emotional journey that we're talking about on Global Youth Service Day, and those stories are really powerful as well. Not everything has to start in the rough patch and end in sunshine. It can be a very emotional and raw story, but we just want to be able to identify the characters, the conflict, and provide some kind of resolution. In the resolution, we want to provide the necessary context and emotion for that audience so that the audiences can make a connection to process the whole story. And we could talk about some of the channels where how you can tell your story. On social media, I want to keep it short. So my storytelling mantra, as you can see, is to keep it simple, keep it short, keep it focused on who's involved and why you should care and why someone else should care. And social media is no different. There are a ton of great resources out there that'll tell you a million different things about how to tell stories on social media, and they're all right and they're all wrong depending on your story. The only rule that I can say live by is ask yourself, would I share this? Because these are your stories, and you should be motivated by the stories that you're telling. And so if you can answer that question, would I share this, with a yes, then the story is at a good place. But just keep it simple, keep it authentic, clear, direct. Stories will always have an audience. Another way to tell your story, especially for Global Youth Service Day, is through press releases. YSA provides really great resources for media templates and press releases to give you the foundations for writing these. But press releases should also include elements of the story that you're trying to tell. When writing a press release, number one rule, be direct. Then tell your story, but focus on your audience, not yourself. Don't tell the story for yourself at this point. Tell the story about why you would care, but what makes the story newsworthy, and tell that story to that particular audience. Great elements include in the stories for your press releases are, does the story include anyone of note, politicians, celebrities, local famous people from your hometowns? Ask in the press release what you want. So if you want to have an article written, be direct, ask for an article to be written, a spot on a local news channel, a blog. And don't waste too much space on you. In the About Me section at the bottom of a press release, really be succinct, clear, and direct. The meat of a press release is about the story, is about what you're asking. So really focus, keep it simple on the story. And something I like to say is, if you learn how to tell your story, the world will never stop listening. It's not about telling the most stories, and it's not about telling the stories the loudest and the most impactful story. It's about learning how to tell your story. Global Youth Service Day is an incredible weekend of action around the world, and it's made up of stories, and stories that can share a lot of similarities. But what's great about Global Youth Service Day is that we each have a story that is unique to us. And so using these tips on the webinar tonight to learn how to tell your particular unique story is going to be great. Your life, your story, your service, it's made up of these stories, and great storytelling isn't just putting it out in the world, but it's learning how to do it. And if you care, and you really care, then you're going to find an audience who cares too. So just pick the channels, social media, podcasts, blogs, press releases. Pick those channels based on where your audience is, and tell your story well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Hopefully you learned from both Winnie and Michael that about different communications channels and how to create a plan and how to tell your story. So now I'm actually going to pass it off to Michael Cutler, who is here from the YSA team, who I did not introduce in the beginning, but he is here as well, and he's going to talk you through some common types of communication channels and what those mean. So Michael, take it away.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Like Sarah said, my name is Mike Cutler. I'm a partnerships manager here at YSA, and I manage our organizational grant programs where we work with local organizations to plan impactful, highly visible service projects. And today I'd like to walk you guys through some of the different communications channels you can use to sort of raise the visibility of your service project and put the spotlight on it. And I'd like to share these channels with you by explaining how some of our grantees are using them all over the country. So the three different types of communication channels that you can use to get your message out are owned, paid, and earned. Some of these tools are meant for communicating with your already established network, while other ones are meant to spread your message to a wider group of people who might be interested in getting involved or just learning more about what you're doing. That's an important part of Global Youth Service Day, is not only the people who are serving, it's the lasting impact and the ripple effect that your service project will have of educating other peers and bystanders who hear about your project after the fact. So some of these different communications channels play different roles. As you can see, we have owned, paid, and earned communication. Owned communication is really built for longer-term relationships with existing partners and customers, and you use it to channel the identity of your brand and share it with your constituents. That includes a website, a blog, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, newsletters, stuff like that. And then we also have paid communications. And paid communications is important because that's how you really reach the people outside of your comfort zone and outside of your network. And that's how you get more people to learn about your cause and rally behind it. So paid communication includes display ads, paid search, and paid influencers. And the last communication channel is earned communications. Now, earned communications is sort of like word of mouth, social sharing, reposts, and news stories. And earned media is often the result of well-executed and well-coordinated owned and paid media. And those communication channels, when used properly, help you earn the earned communication. That's where you'll see the word of mouth. Success with earned media is gained by successfully using owned and paid media. Think about a service like Yelp, for example. People value it so much because it's unfiltered opinions from customers about their experience. In your own community, people value personal testament from others in their network just the same. For example, if they're at a basketball game and hear from one of their teammates or one of the parents that volunteering with your organization or your service project on GYSD was a huge success and was extremely fulfilling and you had a huge impact, they're really going to appreciate that and value it more than just seeing a prescribed tweet or a Facebook post about coming out to volunteer with your organization. That personal testimony always goes very far in winning us over and convincing us to do things. I think peer pressure is not always a good thing, but in this case, it can be very successful in getting people to try new things and care about new causes. And so with that being said, I'd like to talk a little bit more about these communication channels and how some of our grantees are using them. So the first great example is how the Arizona Governor's Youth Commission is using their website to plan all sorts of service projects all across the state of Arizona, ranging from buddy reading to tutoring to other issue area focused service projects. And you can see their website at beseenbeheard.az.gov. And last year, the Arizona Governor's Youth Commission single-handedly led their state to have the top number of projects registered per state across the entire nation, using their easy-to-navigate website and resources on how to plan service projects. Many of our other lead agencies rely on blogging and social media to share their story with local networks. From making dreams come true in Hawaii to City Year, New Hampshire, many of our partners rely on social media and blogs to communicate with their audience that is already familiar with their work. Our past grantee and current lead agency, Sammy Peterson with Shift Scoliosis, often relies on storytelling through her blog and social media accounts to communicate with her targeted audience that is familiar and really cares about the importance of scoliosis. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about paid advertisements. Now, paid advertisements are much harder to come by, with funding being such a sacred resource in our line of work. Many of our grantees seek out corporate sponsors ranging from communications firms and marketing firms to help tailor their message to newspapers and media outlets, where other organizations like the Scrap Gallery in Indio, California, uses connections through their board of directors to connect with local newspapers and TV stations to spotlight the work of their group on the environment. And it really allows them to magnify their message across their town, across their county to people who wouldn't otherwise know about the work they're doing. Now, the Montana Governor's Youth Council, on the other hand, uses influencers who are unpaid but have significant influence to spotlight their work that youth are doing all across the great state of Montana on childhood hunger issues. The governor of Montana, who convenes their youth council every year, has such a significant platform as an elected official that he is able to spread their message far and wide to community members outside of their smaller youth service sphere of influence. He's able to spread their message using press releases and using influence with lobbyists and corporations and all of the members of Montana society who are interested and are involved with these constituents but wouldn't otherwise know about the work that they're doing around childhood hunger. Many of our other partners rely on earned communications to tell the story of their work. This can be very helpful, but it is not easy to gain this type of coverage within your community. Organizations like Bringing Hope Home in Philadelphia, which raises money for community members and their families battling cancer, relies largely on word of mouth within schools to gain attention from local youth for their fundraising events. Then they record awesome videos like music videos or flash mobs to gain social shares and mentions on social media, and they use that to further share their message to other people who wouldn't otherwise know about it. Lastly, the United Way of Greater Toledo, Ohio, relies on their communications department and professional communication staff to share the great stories of youth service happening all across Toledo on Global Youth Service Day. They connect with local newspapers and local news stations who come out to their events in high-profile locations like minor league baseball stadiums and parks across the city to cover the service that their 5,000 youth are doing at over 120 different projects. For an optimal Global Youth Service Day, you really want to plan on using some of all of these communications tools to reach the largest audience possible. Make sure to use the communications plan mentioned earlier to plan what messages you want to send to which audiences, and that will help you decide which channels of communication you should be using for Global Youth Service Day. After you decide what communication channels you want to use, make sure to check out some of the free resources on the next slide that can help you build your own content. Remember that your primary audience loves seeing communications content that is developed by you. It speaks to them much better. Some of the free resources and tools available are LucidPress and PicMonkey for creating posters, graphics, and logos. You can use WordPress and Blogger for creating a blog. You can create a website with Wix and Weebly. You can use MailChimp to create newsletters. And scheduling social media is a breeze with Hootsuite and Shareth. In fact, here at YSA, we use WordPress, LucidPress, Hootsuite, and Shareth to reach as many people as possible.
Awesome. So hopefully you have now learned some cool resources and understood what different types of media look like. So thank you, Michael. That was really helpful. And now I'm going to go over a top 10 list that we've come up with in terms of using a variety of media and reaching out to a variety of different channels to help spread the word about your Global Youth Service Day project. And before I go over it, I just want to give a shout out to Katie Stagliano, who is the founder of Katie's Crafts, because she helped us come up with this list and used her own experiences to help us explain why some of these are on our best practices list. So not only is it coming from staff here at YSA, but it's coming from grantees in the field as well. So the first best practice would be to focus posts where your followers are. And that might seem obvious, but make sure that you're utilizing the social media platform where you have the most followers, because that will give you the biggest reach to advertise your project and any of your GYSD plans that you have coming up. Second, make sure that you're asking your followers to help spread the word about your project. They're following you for a reason, and they are interested in what you're doing, so ask them to help you out. It can't hurt to ask, and if you don't ask, they may never share it. Third, as we all know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Make sure you're using pictures on your posts, and make sure the picture that you choose truly captures the spirit of your message. You'll want to share who you're helping, who your volunteers are, and the impact that your project has and will make. And what better way to share it than through a photo? Next is to write a letter to the editor. Make sure that you're writing a letter to the editor of your local newspaper to highlight your project, and focus on these things. Focus on the benefit to your community, what your needs for your project are, so how people can help, what your inspiration for your project or why you're hosting the project, and also, as I mentioned, who can help, who in the community that's reading this letter to the editor will be able to attend your project. And the good thing about that is the next one is that print media can also be shared on social media. So if you have a link to a newspaper article or a photo of the article, that can also be shared on social media, which is really useful, and that will help you reach the most amount of people that you can. Create a communications committee that is made up of youth from your organization and perhaps members of your Global Youth Service Day Partner Coalition. Make sure you engage youth from day one in the planning and implementation of this strategy. Next one is, since you'll likely be putting together a press release and collecting media content for your GYSD activities, make sure that you collaborate with young people whose spark may be writing. It may be anything related to communications. That could also mean photography or capturing any videos. Young people who have service based on their spark are more likely to stay engaged and continue to engage in your project. So make sure that you're looking for youth who are interested in those types of projects. Ask youth to lead a storytelling campaign about service. This will help youth build a new skill that they can use for their future career, and it will also give you an opportunity to train someone, which may teach you a new skill as well. Next, you want to utilize your local school to spread the word. So find out from the youth you work with, or if you work with a school, if they have a student newspaper or a newsletter or an online resource, and make sure you're tapping into that resource. You can share your stories, or you can share information about your Global Youth Service Day project and how they may be able to help as well. And lastly, my biggest suggestion would be let youth manage your social media. Youth tend to have a better grasp on social media networks than adults do, so you can have them help you craft tweets or posts. They could live tweet events, or you can post questions. They can post questions to your networks from your organization. So hopefully these were helpful best practices based on the work that we do here at YSA, as well as some of the work that our youth grantees are doing as well. And lastly, just to sum up everything that everyone has said today, don't forget to share your stories with us here at YSA. We use all kinds of social media, but you'll see on the screen here our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube accounts. You can tag us using the tags here on the screen, and make sure you're using the hashtag GYSD when you're sharing your stories, sharing your pictures, any videos. We love to see all kinds of planning and implementation and celebration events. So make sure you're sharing with us what you're doing and how you best use your marketing strategies as well. And so make sure that you're using the hashtag GYSD, as we mentioned, and to continue the conversation both through this evening as well as through GYSD and beyond. So thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you back here on March 17th at 7 p.m. for a special St. Patrick's Day GYSD webinar. So thank you so much, everybody.